Welcome to the Retirement Planning Show, your source for financial strategies to help you retire with confidence. Featuring Chip Coughlin of Retirement Income Analysts in Syracuse, New York. Chip is a registered representative, and securities are offered through LPL Financial, member of FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Stratus Wealth Partners, Ltd. Retirement Income Analysts and Stratus Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. And now, here are your co-hosts, Matt Halloran and Chip Coughlin.
Hello and welcome to episode number 20 with Chip Coughlin. Today we're going to talk about practical budgeting tips. Now, this is one of those podcasts that you're going to want to listen to over and over again, and it's also going to be a great opportunity for you to share this with your friends and family. This is something Chip believes very strongly in. He's talked about to his clients for many, many years, and he's going to go over some very good practical budgeting tips for you today. So, Chip, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Good to be here.
All right, man, let's dive right in. So let's talk about some of these practical tips.
Well, as a rule, everyone hates the budget. But if you consider this, do you know where your last paycheck went? Is your money working as hard as you do? Does it work as hard as you do for it? Okay? If not, budgeting can show you how to get the most out of every dollar. No matter what your income, Matt, budgeting can help you get more out of life. Good budgeting won't make you rich, but it can make your life richer. And I think that's very important. So for many of our clients, the trip down the financial road starts with budgeting because we want to get an idea of where they're spending their money, and we want to be proactive in terms of looking forward. Now, we've said this before, the budget is the backbone from which good decisions are made. So if you want to make a purchase, you've got to look at the budget and see if it fits. And if it doesn't fit, don't be emotional, don't be impulsive, don't do it. All right? So the first thing I'd like to talk about today is avoiding money management mistakes. Okay. All right? Okay. So the first one is not having a spending plan. Okay? Where does the money go is the frequent question that we get all the time. Because on a day-to-day basis, a little here, a little there, a little at Dunkin' Donuts, a little at the gas station, a little going out to lunch. Maybe you stop on the way home and meet some friends. It's those little amounts of money that kind of vanish out of your wallet, and on an ongoing basis, that can be pretty large. So we ask our clients to have a spending plan. The budget helps with that. So we want to set up their priorities. What are your regular expenses? Determine what your goals are in relation to short and long-term goals and the range of those goals, and take a critical look at your expenses and weed out those that don't give you real satisfaction. Your budget is a living, breathing piece of paper that you're going to update over time so that it reflects you, who you are, and where you want to get to. And it's really tough because if you don't have a budget, you don't know where you're spending your money, and you get to the end of the year and you wonder what happened. You know, where did all the money go? Did I track my expenses? Most likely not. So that's something we ask people to do. The second one is many of our clients don't have a cash reserve when they come to meet us. And the cash reserve is the emergency fund. And we tell everybody they need about 3 months of their income as the cash reserve. And if you don't have that, build that into your budget so that you're saving a little money out of your pay every single pay period, every single month to build up that cash reserve. Because if your car dies, if your hot water heater dies or something like that, you don't want to have to use your credit card for that. Now, you'd pay for the hot water tank with your credit card, but you'd pay that bill off immediately when it came in. Credit cards should be looked at more as convenience cards, not as credit cards. And I think that's very important because to carry a balance on your credit card, you're making somebody else rich. And if you and I owned a bank, we'd want to have 1,000 people using their credit cards because we'd be charging them 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12%. We find clients that have credit cards that are 21 and 22%. Imagine the investment potential there if you were the bank. Well, we want to take the bank out of your life. We don't want you paying those exorbitant interest rates to the bank. Therefore, you need an emergency fund to pay for those. So not having a cash reserve that's like running out of gas on the highway.
Yeah.
There's no place to get it.
Man, I
All
love
right?
convenience cards, Chip. That's brilliant. You might want to patent that.
Yeah, I like that. It's and again, we go back to, and everyone has seen these commercials. Imagine the couple that just goes to the airport, buys a ticket to some exotic resort, and just goes. No bags, no planning, no nothing. And then they buy everything they need when they get there on their credit card. It sounds like a lot of fun, but in reality, there's what we call a vacation hangover. Okay, when they get home, they're going to suffer for the next 12 months trying to pay that off. So a little planning goes a long way there. And again, if they had a cash reserve, if they did the planning, if they had a budget, they could take a guilt-free vacation. And that's something we subscribe to all the time. Plan the vacation, become invested in it, do the research, see where you're going to go, how you're going to do it, save the money, and go and take it guilt-free. No financial hangover when it's done. The next one down is too much use of credit. Okay, this is the convenience card versus the credit card. We want people to manage their credit. As such, we give them the paperwork to check their credit reports from the credit reporting services, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, and Innovis. And we rotate that every quarter because you get one free report from each of the services a year. So this quarter, we're featuring Innovis, and the client fills it out, they send it in. What are we after there? Well, the client has to become an active participant in protecting their credit. So when they get their credit report, I want them to look through that and make sure that everything on there is them. Nobody stole their credit, opened an account that they didn't know about. So everything on there has to be them, number one. Number two, we want them to find out if they have credit cards that they're not using anymore that are still available. We want them to close those, because the more cards you have, the more chance that you're going to get compromised. And to have your credit stolen is a real headache, emotionally and financially. So we need our clients to be active participants there. And again, too much credit. Many times people say a credit card is something to buy something you don't need at a time you can't afford it. And we want to avoid that. So we're using credit cards for convenience. We're only buying things we know we can pay off at the end of the month when the bill comes, because we want to pay no interest to those greedy banks. And I hope nobody listening is a bank officer, but we want to limit our liability to those banks.
Yeah.
The next one down is no constructive use of windfalls. Let's say you had an inheritance or something as simple as a tax refund. The tax refund doesn't say to you, spend me right away. What it should say is, let's set this money aside. Let's use it to reduce debt or something like that. So if you get a windfall, be very careful about that and make those dollars work for you. The best example is Lotto millionaires. There's a term called sudden wealth syndrome, and it's for people that inherit a significant amount of money, either through family inheritance or the lottery. And what you find out there is they think it's never going to end, and typically Lotto millionaires are bankrupt within about 3 years. So you got to manage those pretty well. But again, any windfalls, be it a bonus, be it a tax refund, be it an inheritance, you should go back to your budget. You should look at your debts. How can we reduce debt that will allow me to save more? Okay. The next one is no provision for large expenses. Okay. If you've got a large expense coming, and again, that could be furniture for the house. It could be need a new car. It could be, the vacation. But if you build those into your budget over time, small amounts of money over a long period of time will give you a great result. So we want you to build those into your budget, save for those monthly through your budget so that you can go in and pay cash for those large expenses. The next one is understanding the cost of ownership. All right. What is the real cost of ownership? Do you want to buy a car? What kind of car do you want to buy? How much is it going to cost you per month? Do you finance? Do you lease? It could be buying a house versus renting an apartment. Are you ready to buy a house? Are you going to live in that area for a long time, or are you going to live there for 2 years where the cost of ownership and the cost of getting in the front door is too high? So we want to understand with our clients what the actual cost of ownership is. The next one is spending leaks, Matt. We want people to look at their budget, and decide where they're leaking or hemorrhaging cash. What could it be? If you spend $5 a day at Dunkin' Donuts, that's $25 a week. That's $100 a month. That's $1,200 a year on coffee. Wow. When you put it in those terms, it seems like a lot of money. Would you ever drive up to Dunkin' Donuts the first day of the year and give them $1,200? And say,
no.
I'll be back throughout the year. Here's my $1,200. It'd be lunacy to do that.
Yeah.
So we want to find out where you're leaking money and plug those leaks, because a little money saved over a long period of time gives you an explosion of value. The next one is careless shopping habits. All right. And I alluded to this earlier. This would be someone that is, buying things that they don't need at a time they don't need them. Sometimes I see clients that say, well, it was a really good deal, so I had to buy it. Well, if you have no plans to use it, no matter what the price is, you shouldn't be buying it right now. So only buy the things you need, okay? Anticipation is key. You got to plan ahead a little bit, but don't go overboard with that. If you have small amounts, if you can save small amounts, don't throw up your hands or throw in the towel and say, you know what, that's insignificant. Because in your budget, every little bit helps. And I tell my kids, I have the 3 daughters, when they have a change in income through bonuses, through increases in pay, we want them to keep their lifestyle line the same. The cost of their living does not increase, and we want to take that increase and put it into the retirement plan. A small amount of money over a long period of time, that could be the recipe for a retirement plan that could be tremendous. So we've got to watch that. And the last one in this category for me is can't wait attitude. Buy it now. I need it now. I think one of the greatest things is setting a goal, putting it in your budget, saving for it every month, and achieving that goal. There's a feeling of accomplishment that my clients have said that is just tremendous. Now let's think about that in the big picture. When people get ready to retire, I tell them many times, you probably don't want to go into retirement having a mortgage. So let's do a calculation to figure out what it would take in extra dollars per month from now until you retire to pay that mortgage off. And many times it's not that big of a deal, but just being smart and setting those dollars aside for the months and years that are ahead, you can achieve that goal. And I got to tell you, we've had clients pay their houses off. That is one of the best days of their lives. Because as you know, a house is one of the biggest expenses that people have. And if they can pay that off before they go out into retirement, it's a great thing. Because you don't want to have a large percentage of your retirement income going out the door to pay a loan. So let's get it done. You can live much easier without that mortgage. So when we look at the budget, we tell people that one of the things they should build into the budget is they should save or invest 10 to 15% of their income. And that won't make you rich. It'll just make you economically successful. And the first goal for many of them is the emergency fund, okay? We want to build that emergency fund. Beyond that, it could be money that's going into your 401k or 403b or your IRA. So we want you to save those dollars every month, every pay period, and make it work. Now, one of the strategies, Matt, we use with our budgeting is we tell our clients to pay themselves first. And I ask this question to my clients very simply, and it's kind of interesting how it goes. I say, who do you work for? And they give me the look, and they say, well, I work for the utility company, or I work for the school district, or I work for the hospital. And I look at them and I say, no, who do you work for? And they say, well, I just told you I work for the hospital, the utility, the school district. I said, no, who do you work for? Mm-hmm. And they look at me like, what are you getting at? And I said, who are the most important people in your life? Mm-hmm. And they say, well, my family, my wife and my kids. I said, is it fair to say you work for them? Mm-hmm. And they think for a minute and they go, yeah, that's it. So we want you to pay yourself first. It's a concept that everybody's heard, but few people practice. So if you have a savings goal of 15% or 20%, if you're really good at it, pay yourself first. Take it right off the top. Set it aside, all right? And spend whatever's left. If you can accomplish the goal of saving first, you've earned the right to spend everything that's left, all right? But if you don't pay yourself first, Who do you work for? Well, do you work for the utility company that you pay your heat bill to? Do you work for the car company you lease from? Yeah, you pretty much do. I want to put you at the top of that list and not those people, not the mortgage company, not the utility company, not the car lease company, and things like that. So pay yourself first. And if you do that over time, you're going to have success. All right? So financial success is simple. It's the ability to accumulate money and receive a return on what you save. It's not what you spend. It's not what you earn. It's how much you save. And we tell our clients all the time, are you a better saver than you are a spender? And they give me the deer in the headlight look. And I said, well, to be a good saver means you put yourself first, you save for the future, you save for goals you have established for yourself, and then you've earned the right to spend. Most people spend first and save whatever's left at the end of the month. And what do you think is at the end of the month? It's almost zero.
Yeah.
Every single time. So we call it the spenders and the savers. And I will tell you, in America today, this is a fact, okay? The spenders work for the savers. The savers are the people that own the business, that run the practice, that own the retail stores, that own the restaurants. They are the savers because they saved first, they built it up, and then they invested. The spenders actually work for them because they're living paycheck to paycheck. And people think, oh, paycheck to paycheck, that's only for people making minimum wage. I would tell you, we've have people come to us that are making very, very good six-figure incomes that spend everything they bring in the front door. So it's a conscious or sometimes unconscious lifestyle decision. You get used to spending that money. You don't want to change. You like the lifestyle. You like the nice cars, the trips, the vacations, and things like that. And you don't want to change. And sometimes it does catch up to you. We've seen that in medicine with a lot of our physician clients because when managed care came to town, it reduced their incomes. And if they were used to spending everything they made, then they were having a financial seizure. And they just couldn't get out from underneath that. And it's very, very hard. So we want our clients' lifestyle to lag their income by 2 to 3 years. So if you're young and you're upwardly mobile and you're getting raises every year, let your lifestyle lag your income by 2 to 3 years. And the difference there is money that goes into the saving and money you fund your 401k with. It's those things that I think that are very important. So if we looked at cutting costs, let's talk about a couple of the big ones. One of your biggest budget expenses is food. I've got 4 kids. My son eats like...
He eats like 4 kids.
Oh, he eats like 4 kids. And he likes a lot of different things. And he can really pack it away because he burns a lot of calories. But we tell our clients, have a budget, plan your shopping in advance. Prepare a week's worth of menus or make a shopping list to do that. And buy only what you need for that period of time. And leave room in your list for the loss leaders and the specials. Because if you find something at the food store that looks, like it's a great bargain, we want you to get that. But look at the food budget because that can really get out of hand. And as a corollary to the food budget, think about going out to dinner. And I know from the Coughlin family, we like to go to Bonefish Grill. This isn't a commercial for Bonefish Grill, but we like to go to Bonefish Grill. Everything was going along fine till I started tracking my expenses. And I saw how much money over the course of the year I spent at Bonefish Grill. And I said, I've got to change that. That's a lot of money. So for the next 6 months, the Coughlins didn't go to Bonefish Grill. And, it's small amounts of money that just sneak up on you. It's those leaks in your spending. And you like being there. It's a nice restaurant. You like the food. And then you go to the emotional side. I deserve this. I've worked really hard. I need a night out. Hey, I got to tell you, we want you to get emotional about your budget, not about what's going on, at Bonefish Grill. So food is one of the biggest items, and you got to watch that. How about housing? Okay, that could probably be your single biggest investment. And do you buy a house or do you rent a house? And home ownership isn't for everybody. Let's face it. And if you move frequently or if you're in residency, going to fellowship, going into practice, they might be 3 different locations. So you don't have time to buy a house, pay the closing costs, and recoup that in the value of your house increasing over that period of time. So you may be renting, but you've got to really be smart about buying a house. I will tell you, Matt, as an example, when my wife and I were looking at our first house, our first child was on the way. I was 28 years old, and I went in to see the realtor, and I had saved money, and my wife was pretty excited, and she said, "Oh, we can find a house for you." And I said, "Oh, this is great." She showed me houses that were so far out of my price range, I almost fainted. And I said, finally, after seeing all these houses, and my wife loved every one of them because they were beautiful, I finally took the realtor aside, and I said, "Listen, I want you to show me, based on my budget and based on the mortgage rates at the time, a house for this much money." And in my case, this was back in 1984, 85. And I said, "I want to look at a house for $120,000 and no more." And she said, "Well, I'm showing you houses I think you can afford." Well, it wasn't her budget. So you have to protect your budget from people trying to get into it to have you spend more than you need. Because I will tell you, buying a house is a pretty emotional thing. It's financial, but it's emotional. My wife saw the kitchen and the family room and said, "Oh my God, this house is for me." But when we looked at the $120,000 house, it wasn't as nice, but it was very practical. It was very efficient. And I told the realtor, I said, "Listen, if you show me a house over $120,000, you're fired." And she didn't take that too well. But then we saw some houses at $120,000, and that's the house we bought. And we lived there for 11 years. So it worked out very good. How about furniture and appliances? Everybody needs furniture in their house. This isn't college anymore where you can sit on the floor. But, you have to decide what you need, what's the most efficient way to do it, and how to buy those things. Do you buy the furniture in groups if it's your first home? Or do you go to a specialty store and buy the couch and the chairs and things like that? But watch out on furniture because, again, furniture has a value when you're sitting on it, but it's nothing you can turn into cash if you need to sell it. Okay, now people on OfferUp and LinkedIn sell used furniture, and that may be a place to look, but you're not going to sell your furniture to generate income. How about a car? We all need a car. We got to get from here to there. And we pick on cars in my retirement class, Matt, because there's a lot of real nice, expensive cars out there. But no matter what the cost of the car, whether it's a Subaru, a Hyundai, or a Maserati, they all go down in value. Think about tying an asset up, a large amount of money in an asset that goes down in value. You'd say that's a poor investment. And we pick on cars because there's so many ads on TV for cars. And we want our clients to buy an efficient car, a car that's safe, a car that gets them from home to work and wherever they need to go in a practical manner. It's not the BMW 700 series car. Okay, we had a client buy one of those, and oh my God, what a car. It was like a fortress on wheels. But guess what? They all go down in value. So tying an asset up in an asset that goes down in value, it's wasting money. So we pick on cars. I will give you a little footnote. We believe in the old days, our parents' days, cars lasted 4 years. You buy a new car, didn't matter what kind it was, in 4 years it looked awful. It was falling apart. Now there are 10-year cars. And if you do the math, if you buy a 10-year car and you're going to work for 40 years, that's 4 cars over that 40-year period. But if you buy a 5-year car, you're going to buy twice as many cars and have twice as much resource in that car. And where's a better place for that resource? I think it's in your retirement account. I think it's in your bank account and things like that. So an automobile is a necessity, but let's not lose our mind and spend too much on it. How about clothing? Okay, we talk about clothing. Buying clothes for work is important, okay, but let's not go broke on clothing. Many times clothing is an emotional purchase, and it's a purchase that's done on a whim. Hey, I really like that. I need that. I've got to have that. Again, if you go back to your budget and you look at this and hey, I need a new winter coat, what's the best time to buy it? Well, I say don't buy vacation or sportswear at a resort. and buy your clothes in the off season. LL Bean used to sell their winter coats in April, okay, at a wicked discount. So if you looked at my closet, I got a couple LL Bean winter coats. I bought them in April in anticipation of the next year. What a value that is. You know, there's other ways to cut costs of living costs, to cut costs in your budget. You know, rent seldom used items. You know, don't buy a tux. You can rent a tux. Unless you're going out every other week, don't buy the tux. You know, cut vacation costs by planning ahead, planning, being practical and things like that. Your entertainment dollars, be practical about that. Where to go to the movie. Every city has movie theaters that play almost first-run movies at a real discount. Find out where they are and do that. Make a budget for Christmas. Make a budget for birthdays. Set a little money aside in the birthday or Christmas fund so that it doesn't give yourself budget shock. All of those things I think are very important. Now, let's talk about the budget for just a minute. You know, we've talked about what not to do and what to do. I would say if you're married, work on the budget together. All right? Include your spouse because their input is important. Their financial goals may be different than yours. I will tell you, if you can get those goals on the same page, if you can both be rowing the boat together, the financial boat, it will be much more efficient if you agree on a lot of those items. All right? We want our clients to pay off debt. Being debt-free is important. Work to pay off those debts. If it's credit cards, make a list, put the highest interest rate credit card at the top of the list, and pay extra on that till it's done, then the next one, and so on. We call that our credit card avalanche, where we just get it going down. And I'll tell you, it's exciting to pay those off. We had a young physician that came to us, and she had an outrageous number of credit cards. And she had so many open cards, some with balances, some without, that she couldn't get a mortgage. She had 32 open credit cards, all right? And every store she walked into Home Depot, they were offering 10% off today if you open a card. So she opened a card, bought a can of paint, and the card sat in a shoebox for the rest of its life. She did that with everything. So we had to start closing those. As you know, if you close a credit card, your credit score goes down. But over time, that's not so bad, because what you want to do is limit your exposure to the people that are trying to steal your credit. And by having a few cards rather than many, you can do that. Don't be afraid to trim your budget. If your budget isn't looking right, you've got to make some changes. Make some sacrifices, if you will. Find out what's important to you and put that into your budget. It may not work. It does take a team to get it done. Create a little slush in your budget, a little bit extra that's the buffer in case you have an out-of-the-blue expense. What would that be? It could be something like, I've got to take a plane ride to see a sick relative. Where's that going to come out of? Well, your emergency fund or your slush fund and things like that. So I think budgeting, as I said earlier, is the backbone to all the temptations to purchase things that you don't need. I would tell you, you have to have financial goals. The goals can be reflected in your budget so that you start to feel that you're taking care of the right things first, and the things that don't matter or don't have an impact on your life, they're going to be last. So create the budget, live by the budget, update the budget, track your expenses, track everything above a quarter that you spend money on to see exactly where that money is going out the door. You can go online. There's many online budgeting tools that you can use where you can start to track expenses and start to make the budget, but you have to buy in if you want to be successful. It doesn't matter if you're in college, middle-aged, or retired and 75 years old. The budget can add value to your life. Number one, by knowing what you're spending money on, and by making changes, conscious changes if you desire to make it better. So, Matt, that's my talk on budgeting tonight. Any questions?
Any questions? No, man, I was feverishly writing throughout most of that and thinking to myself, you know, Chip, you seem pretty passionate about this.
Well, we try to get people to really buy into the budgeting concept. And again, it's not how much you make, it's how much you save.
Right.
All right? And if you're a better saver than you are a spender, you're going to grow financially. And let's face it, we could spend another hour on this and talk about using your budget the impact that'll have on your net worth statement. And again, to our listeners out there, they should be doing a net worth statement every single year because you need real gains in your net worth every year. You can't take a year off if you want to be successful. But the budget is where it starts. And I do this with my kids. We look at what they're bringing home and what their expenses are. We try to anticipate what's coming. My daughters are at the age when many of their friends are getting married. And, those are very expensive. You got to pay for the dress. You got to go on a bridesmaid trip. You've got to go to a different locale and rent a hotel room and things like that. So we try to anticipate those things, put that into the budget so it does not give them budget shock.
Gotcha.
And I can't stress how important that is, because in your budget, if you prioritize, find out what's very important to you, put that at the top of the list. Remember, you work for yourself and your family. Let's pay yourself and your family first.
And with that, thank you very much, Chip.
Very good, Matt.
And this was episode number 20, Practical Budgeting Tips with Chip Coughlin. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, make sure you click subscribe now to the podcast button below. That way, every time Chip comes out with a podcast like this, it'll go right to your listening device, and it also makes it easier for you to share with your friends and family. For Chip Coughlin, I'm Matt Haller, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Stratos Wealth Partners, a registered investment advisor. Stratos Wealth Partners and Retirement Income Analysts LLC are separate entities from LPL Financial. Content in this material is for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly.